Welcome to the John Cady Podcast. I'm John Cady, U.S. Navy retired, former minister. Over the last few years, I've had the opportunity to follow Professor of Rock, and there were a couple particular music episodes that caught my attention, and I finally had a chance to do a little bit of research on the subject. It involved two songs that were popular in the early 1970s. One was Bloodrock and their hit single D.O.A. The other was Timothy by the Buoys. Professor of Rock talked about both songs and the controversy that surrounded radio station airplay in his interview with Rupert Holmes, who is also known for his number one hit, Escape, the Pina Colada song. Holmes admitted that the song was written on purpose to be controversial and offensive because the record label that the Buoys worked for at the time just simply had no interest in pushing the band and promoting them. Bloodrock's D.O.A., on the other hand, was a more personal, introspective masterpiece built on the memory of the lead guitarist having experienced the death of a close friend in an airplane crash. The lyrics told the tale of the final moments of that airplane crash victim. Chart-wise, D.O.A. peaked at number 36 in the early part of 1971. Spring of that same year, the Buoys would climb higher on the Hot 100, hitting number 17. But the question that I wondered, and I have posted in comments ever since the subject was first brought up, was growing up, I listened to Casey Kasem. I was a big fan of American Top 40 from the time I was in high school all the way into my college years and even after going in the military. My wondering, my curiosity was, what was the great Casey Kasem's reaction to these songs as they both made their entrance on American Top 40? Especially after sitting there in the DJ chair, needle to the vinyl. And then as the lyrics unfolded, one could only just imagine the look of sheer horror on Casey Kasem's face, knowing that these were not your typical top 40 pop songs, but here we were. So doing some research, I've uncovered a little bit here about what was Casey Kasem's reaction to playing Bloodrock's D.O.A. and the Buoys song Timothy on American Top 40. The answer: Casey Kasem's reaction to both songs is remembered as a mix of professional obligation, visible discomfort, and carefully worded distancing rather than outright refusal. The very mention of the name American Top 40 meant this wasn't Casey Kasem's Top 40. This was the results straight out of the Billboard magazine Hot 100, radio stations and record stores across the country. We're going to start with D.O.A. D.O.A., as has been mentioned on other platforms and on Professor of Rock, is essentially a first-person narration of a man dying after a plane crash. Kasem clearly did not like the song, but he still played it because AT-40 was strictly chart-driven. His delivery was not enthusiastic. Listeners noted a restrained, almost somber tone, which actually, when looking back, that's a very appropriate tone because the song was meant to be somber and grim. Unlike his usual upbeat commentary, Kasem kept introductions brief and factual, avoiding emotional embellishment. He never praised the song artistically and moved on quickly after it aired. In short, he treated it as grim business, not entertainment. The Buoys song Timothy was far more troubling to Casey because of its implied cannibalism, something that even Rupert Holmes has talked about in interviews, for the sole purpose of the shock value alone. That was what got the song in there in the first place. 3 miners trapped, only 2 emerge. Casey Kasem reportedly objected strongly to the song's subject matter behind the scenes. However, on the air, he took a defensive approach. He emphasized the band's public claim that Timothy was a mule, not a person. People who were in the know and who had listened to the lyrics of the song didn't buy the claim, but looking back, one would guess that Casey was obligated to go with the public claim to avoid further controversy. His intro sounded strained and cautious, as if he wanted listeners to know he wasn't endorsing the story. And like D.O.A., he rushed past it once the record ended. Now, the bigger pattern. These songs fell directly into Casey Kasem's long-standing tension as a broadcaster. He believed pop radio should be uplifting and family-friendly. American Top 40 forced him to play whatever the audience bought. When those values clashed, Kasem chose minimal commentary, neutral or distancing language, and no editorial praise. This same moral line surfaced far more dramatically in his infamous off-air rant about a long-distance dedication involving a dog's death, showing that these weren't isolated moments, but part of who he was as a broadcaster. Reading these answers here, it also reflects very strongly Casey Kasem's professionalism as a broadcaster, as a DJ, containing his disgust and dismay over the subject matter and choosing instead to play what the people wanted and then quickly move on to the next song that was a little bit more to his liking. This would be a pattern that would surface from time to time over the years when other controversial songs would emerge, including Lou Reed's Walk on the Wild Side, which we'll probably talk about at another time, I don't know. Lou Reed definitely was not a man known for staying on the safe lane when it came to his songwriting. So the bottom line was, he played both those songs and others, such as Lou Reed, because the charts demanded it, but he made it clear, subtly and professionally, that these were not the kinds of songs he believed represented the spirit of pop radio. This is John Cady. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and if you like the content that's being presented, please hit like, hit subscribe, and I'm looking forward to catching you on the next one.